my 196th I've spent lying in Dinant. But now that it's under siege, I might not die before it is ruined. My title was Lord Henry Sawar, but to the boy of the household I've been kept by, I am simply Rusty Knight, and to the town of Dinant I have simply been pronounced dead. Screams coming through the cellar windows, and a quiet din of battle sounds far outside. Clangs of steel on chainmail from the fire over the walls. Thick thwacks of arrows from our defenders in their towers, but keeping in time with it all is the hollow, echoing boom made by the battering ram at our gate. We were first invaded 4 months ago and nearly taken in the first night. But even after our town withstood the raid and persisted, the reinforcing pillagers have landed and returned when they are rerouted, before returning again, as easily as waves on a beach. The boy's too cheerful. Just speak to me about the casualties, or the hardship. I hear the mother and father talk of selling my body, and wonder if their child's playmate is worth the extra mouth to feed. Smell of rot comes from inside and hits deep into my nostrils to remind me of my shame, and I wonder when the infection will finally take my mind or my heart. I was felled in battle, protecting the weak and near single-handedly stopping the last siege, even after a great sickness had made me crippled. And the legend that has already grown into sainthood correctly tells that I withstood a dozen mortal blows before I finally succumbed once the skirmish had been won. But the legend does not tell that I still twitched to grip my sword 2 hours after my head had nearly been cut off, and that rather than run in fear of this witchcraft, the undertaker tasked with removing my body had heaved my form onto a cart and rushed me to a physician in the dead of night. I thought my wounds would be treated, but the physician had only been convinced not to denounce me to be excised or burned by the priests, when the undertaker made him the offer of either a pound of meat and friendship, or a dagger buried in his heart and a sliced throat by morning. I was able to speak with and provide company to the undertaker until his last day, but my tongue fell out not long after his children had sworn to keep me with the house. Now I lie, half dead and impossibly alive, with a family generations away from the first undertaker. Now I'm little more than a keepsake and a sign of their honour. Lying in a corner at the end of their cellar, I haven't been able to move anything but my eyes and a little of my neck for the past 2 years. My insides are either melted or infested with maggots. My lungs have collapsed in on themselves, and my flesh only just clings onto the bone under the skin that is sagging and withered. But amidst it all, I still feel the sickly, cold sweat of what I was infected with over a century ago. It's the only thing that is truly alive in my body, and as it trickles through my veins and seeps in and out of all my wounds, it is thriving, and I can only theorise that it's kept me alive all this time. It's a cruel kindness. Suddenly, the cellar door wheezes open, and a bolt of light catches my half-withered face as the little boy runs down to greet me, screaming, "Rusty Knight, I stole you some bread!" For looking puzzled at the angle of half-open mouth and the size of the loaf, and eventually deciding to just stab it down the hole in both my armour and my gut, as apprehensive as I am about the theft. I'm grateful for the buzz of nourishment. It already starts to give, and I clench my eyes into my new cheekless version of a grin to show I'm thankful. Another boom sounds, and he takes a moment to stand sheepishly and look back to the door, and I get enough time to silently pray it doesn't come to this before he turns back to me and starts blurting everything that's happened since his last visit yesterday, and I get to feel what would be the fondest laughter for the longest time as he talks of his father and mother's attempts to teach him chess, and the new screaming man, crier, after the last one took his leave. But then he brings up the bad people and asks me if any of my fellow shiny men will come to our aid. I hold in hell and nearly explode just to stop myself from cursing whatever name they've given themselves in rage. My order was treated as gods, but even in my time most behaved like children, and now that they have refused to give even the slightest aid to a town that made one of their own a saint in its direst day, they are worse than vermin to me. But then he moves on and starts talking about the rat they nearly ate, and so innocently, cheerfully entertains me with it all, despite the hell he is living through. I'd embrace him in the arms of my lowest hug, and if I could, I'd weep for him as well. Suddenly, the boom sounds again, and my ears manage to pick up the burning crack of the main gate coming in too, and even the child can't ignore the stampede and the jeers and the screams. He turns back and looks, but I don't think he even gets a glimpse of his parents before they slam the cellar door shut and scream for him to barricade it. Two invaders rush past the window of the home that has held me unconditionally for the past 200 years, and I would be standing fast outside its door. The father makes a pitchfork come clanging out of their tools and curses them to leave, and my sword would be warning them too, but their swords get past his guard and pierce the heart, and I should have been slicing them in half. The mother screams until she's silenced, and I should have never let it get to that point. The boy starts to cry, but he's shocked out of that when a sword comes through the door, leaves, and then stabs right through again. It happens 3 times before he hits the lock and it comes falling down. An awful monster comes down the stairs. The boy comes to my corner and covers his eyes. A hand takes him and the belly bellows in glee, and my hand should be tearing it out, stabbing his guts and breaking his ribs and skewering his heart and making him scream until his head comes off, and then my hand grabs the sword and grates it along the floor. The man monster turns his head and looks with the horror of cattle before calming himself with the fact that I'm dead, like a mother soothing a wimp. Silently, I yell with frustration, but somehow I feel the trickling of the infection sweeten in mischievous response. Anxiously, he draws a dagger and puts it to the boy's throat. I'd yell and I wish him death, and the infection agrees, suddenly giving its thriving fire to my muscles, and I get to jerk my whole arm up. Once the man stops and looks again to see my blade pointed right at him and my back hunching over as I bend my legs and push my whole frame up as he makes a childish scream, getting punched by the boy as he flees his attacker and stands hiding behind my back. look down and smile at him, like I've always wanted to. And for a moment, I stand at my full, towering height, with my sword in both hands, and a look of pure fury for the man ahead of me. But I feel my wounds, and let myself deform and hunch as I start lumbering towards him. He backs away, desperately lunges to make pitifully short stabs at nothing, until I drive 2 meters in the lunge of my own and drive my rusted sword through his no longer bellowing belly. My grinning, half-rotten face wishes him farewell before I rip my sword out, climb the stairs and get stabbed in the back by the second man. And this is where the legend would end if I had not gone through it over a century before. But the blade fits right into the hole left by the last one 196 years ago. And he can only wail until I turn myself around and use the momentum to cut his head clean off. The boy nearly follows me out, but I make sure he sees the look I give him before covering the doorway in the one they broke down and hearing him start blocking the stairs up. The town still screams and my body still rots, but the sickness is with me again. And as I begin the new slaughter, it gives me strength greater than flesh and crueler than rage, and I charge out with over a dozen mortal wounds, knowing that I will survive over 100 more.